Welcome to episode 133 of Closer Mentality. I'm your host, Julia Mellett. Today's guest, Quinn Harwood, never thought he could talk about his mental health struggles. He grew up in a rough and tumble basketball scene during the 90s and never saw anyone speaking to their mental struggles or seeking help. He didn't even realize help was an option.
The 90s was a blast. I think it was a competitive environment. It was hard-nosed. It was tough. It was drill. It was aggressive. If people played and remember that 90s generation of professional basketball, it was a war. It was a battle. Too physical, let's just say. That's why the game changed, and you got people like Steph Curry in there opening up space and creating avenues. But at the time, it was brutal. It was physicality, and it was very position-centric, as now the game just free flows, has a lot more open space, open concept. I would have thrived in today's game. I felt that back then I was kind of in between positions when I hit the professional marks. But I think that's the style of play it was. And so you grew tough. You had to get a tough mindset to get through that.
Harwood struggled through his high school career. There was a void of conversation surrounding how to deal with the inherent pressures of playing such high-level basketball and getting recruited. One coach, Harwood recalls, changed his mentality around motivation and determination. A simple conversation from coach to player rewired Harwood's mentality.
Growing up, even though you would have thought, hey, this guy's progressing in sports and athletics, I was very articulate. I could basically had good education. I went to top school, top university. There was still something intrinsically missing in me, and I was wrestling with self-doubt, was wrestling with imposter syndrome, and just not a really strong belief about who I was or where I was going. And in that, I coach a lot these days to young people, what I call my Zillennial fam, the Gen Z millennial crew that are on that line, how to really build a bold, confident life. And the coach I had who really gave me a glimmer of what that could look like was actually when I was 15 years old. It was my junior varsity coach. I went to a very competitive high school. 2 years older than me was a Hall of Famer, Grant Hill, who went to my high school. And so we had a very competitive approach to sports and basketball. And at 6 foot, as a sophomore, couldn't jump over an iPhone. I was primarily a forward position. Well, my junior varsity coach looks at me and says, "You're going to be our point guard this year." And I'm like wide-eyed, like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Like, these guys are so much more athletic. They're faster than me. I can't make those decisions. I haven't done this before. But what he started to instill in me was a belief that I could do it. He's the first coach that really instilled affirmation in me, a tenderness, but an affirming belief in what was possible. And that confidence really kind of built in me. And I went on, even though I was on the JV team, it set me up for success. I was a point guard that year. We had a great year, 21-3. We won our district. And I really realized, his belief in me elevated my belief in myself. And so that was a transitional period, I think. And the skills I learned, just from a standpoint of basketball, when you grow to 6'8", 6'9", and you have those point guard skills, well, all of a sudden I have a college scholarship to a Division I school. So that was a key lesson for me. And I didn't fully grasp it at the time because I was young, and I couldn't probably grab that till I was probably in my mid-20s or 30s about what coaching looks like and the value of believing in somebody and how you instill belief. But it was transformational.
Harwood, at 6'9", found a spot for himself on the roster at Davidson College.
Well, I had the joy of working with Coach Bob McKillop, Davidson College, and he's a Hall of Fame coach, and he coached Steph Curry and a lot of great players that came through the program. And he was a New Yorker, and his mindset was like, you can't be soft like vanilla ice cream. And his style of approach at that time was very difficult and challenging and confrontational in a way that challenged your mindset. So he could wear you out, you can get disappointed, you could feel like quitting, giving up. There was just such an edge to how he coached. And if you didn't evolve and get tougher in the way you thought about things, you got swallowed up. And Julia, there was definitely parts of my college career where I got swallowed up. I got swallowed up in my mental health, got swallowed up in my mental self, and I really struggled through different periods in my college. But I believe that from the big lens of life, he built a toughness and resiliency in me that I didn't have coming out of high school. I think where you see the switch today is there's a lot more tenderness in how people and coaches are having to connect and relate to players. There's a tenderness that is evolved, and that's getting more awareness around mental health and awareness around how to be more compassionate and empathetic. So there's a strength to that. What I do find is somewhere there's a balance, somewhere the pendulum may swing too much to empathetic and tenderness, and then you don't have a toughness or resiliency baked in. So I think we're seeing a swing, in our culture today. But I grew up in that toughness generation, man. Suck it up, buttercup, and get after it. That's all I want to talk about. I think there was value to it. I think much like the way we grow up in life, we perceive and receive information in a way that we are processing our life. And was it right? I think there was tremendous value to it. Was it complete or whole? No. So value add to build toughness and resilience in us as people? Yes. Did it miss the mark in terms of having some level of compassion, empathy, and support for a person? Yes. So in that there was toughness, but just no tenderness.
Harwood didn't realize that the yin of toughness came with a yang of tenderness. That mental health included a whole other side of respect for the softer sides of our minds. That success doesn't come from aimlessly pushing forward.
I would say it was a mixed roller coaster. I would say my freshman year, like a lot of athletes, they probably have high visions and high aspirations. And when they realize how competitive the landscape is, and they're not really ready to perform at that level. And I really wasn't, mentally, physically. And that becomes a challenge. And that's where you can walk into discouragement, self-doubt, minor spaces or spells of depression, discouragement. And I walked through that my freshman year. And with that, I had to respond, and thank goodness something within me responded and got a little tougher. What I noticed is my experience at Davidson paralleled my college coach who started to transform his own style of leadership my sophomore year. And I think this is cool for the audience because as he transformed his leadership, the team performed extremely well my sophomore, junior, and senior years of college. And he issued like a value code. And it's something I coach to quite a bit in terms of understanding identity. I coach it in a section of growth time called the Power of You, which is well worth your time to go read and get and dig into your personal growth. But one of the spaces is your values. And he issued a value code. And we slapped it on the wall. It was called TCC, Trust, Care, Commitment. And it's like that whole thing. You walk out of the arena, you tap it, and he began speaking to values as a way to drive behavior and change in results. So that started to catch on with the team, and we started to try to achieve value-driven performance, not just performance-driven goals. And that was the shift. And he went through a shift. I went through a personal shift through there. And it turned out to be a pretty dang good college career. We did come up short a few years of getting to the NCAA tournament, which was extremely discouraging. We lost some last second shots. But I felt like overall, I was grateful. It was 1,000-point score plus in college, and had an opportunity then to go to the NBA summer camps and get chances to play at the next level. So I think from a person who was 6 foot who couldn't jump over an iPhone, had a lot of self-doubt, to at least get to that space, it was a win. I think to be able to navigate the personal growth journey we all go through, we have to be able to step back. When you're in the moment, when you're in the spot, especially when you're 18, 19, 20-year-old, your brain's not even formally developed till it's 25. You're trying to navigate your goals and ambition, but you're also wrestling through yourself. And there's really not a clear path, and there's a lot of noise out there how to navigate yourself as a person. So I think when you look at the story of right, wrong, tough, tenderness, understanding when you learn those differences, I think it comes from time and awareness. If you've never experienced something, you just know that that's the way things are and should be. When you become aware there's a different approach or different way, you go, aha, maybe the way I was thinking or believing about anything wasn't the full picture of being whole and complete. And really the journey, if you're whole and complete, you just have a lot more power in your life and the way you approach it.
Harwood said that he would suggest that up-and-coming student athletes seek out personal growth prior to roster spots. It's the personal growth that he says predicates all other successes, including playing time down the line.
My life was still a roller coaster in college, and I know a lot of college athletes. Heck, my son's a college athlete right now. And there's a roller coaster that that forms through the athlete, but it's also a thread that continues to spiral through their adult career profession unless it's really kind of rooted and addressed. So my college, I was still up and down, and I call it the performance cycle. And it's a terrible cycle to work in and live in. If you perform well, you feel good. If you don't perform well, you don't feel good. And then based upon those feelings, your mental clarity, your mental confidence, your confidence in you, it begins to be a roller coaster. And the journey of performance as a pathway to confidence is a shaky ground. But I lived in that. So there was days when we were winning and I was doing well. I felt great. I could conquer the world, and probably arrogantly so and self-centered so. But then there was also times where I didn't perform as well, where, my goodness, the lows were lows. And then there was lonely nights. And then you're sitting there drinking some street wine, questioning your whole life. And so that's just part of what is real. In our generation that we see with those millennials, they're doing the same thing. Now, they might not be drinking alcohol as much, which is a unique trend among the next generation, but they're scrolling, and just looking for that extra fix or feel of dopamine. And so it becomes this uneasy, unbridled like race that they keep running, and they just never whole or at peace. And so I went through that in college. It wasn't really till after college I had some really unique experiences that really shifted or changed my life and the way I viewed personal growth and my growth story.
By the time Harwood graduated from Davidson in 1996, he had his sights set on the NBA.
Most collegiately, I thought I had a chance to get drafted in the second round. It was the year of the exodus of the college student. And so it was the first year where you had sophomores, freshmen, juniors just going mad rush to the NBA. Most times people stayed 2 or 3 or 4 years. Well, that year, no. I mean, you had Allen Iverson come out, Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, some really powerful names that kind of came out in that draft. And I didn't get drafted, and from there was a little bit of disappointment, but at least I knew I was on the radar for my dream or my goal of playing in the NBA. What happened next was I got drafted in the first round by the CBA, which for the peeps on the show today, that was like the G League back in the day. There wasn't all these leagues. There was one league. It was called the CBA, Continental Basketball Association. You played in these godforsaken Midwest towns, God bless them, but you played in them like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, love you, but it was freezing as all hell out there, and I would never want to go back again. But you played in these towns, and that's where you learned to get elevated to the NBA. And so you had people in the CBA that were up on 10-day contracts, down on 10-day contracts. So there was still a hope there. I didn't want to go overseas and play. I had those opportunities. My dream and goal was to try to reach my potential. And to me, I felt like, wow, I've dreamed about playing in the NBA and achieving this heightened success and all the self-imposed glory that I thought I wanted and needed in life. And that's what I was striving for. So that was the beginning part of it. And I was a colossal flop, like a colossal failure going from my first year trying out. I tried out for the LA Lakers, had a good time, hung out with Kobe Bryant and had a lot of fun talking smack with him, but he was exuberantly confident as an 18-year-old when he was making that team. He made the team, I didn't. I don't know if it was the best decision, but okay, they chose him over me. And I went after that to the Chicago Bulls and had a tryout with them. John Paxson was like, hey man, the NBA is not for everybody. And that was like, that was a dagger. And John Paxson, if you know his game, he made his mark as a shooter, and really he found an isolated role. And I'm like, wow. So I wasn't probably ready to give up on the dream, but I was saying I should at least give it a shot in the CBA. And then that became a disaster in my mind. I was basically out in Omaha, Nebraska. I was at the end of the bench. At that point, I'm disconnected from the familiarity, the comfort, the support of college bros and college teammates. It's a total different culture in the professional world than you have when you're in the college world. And the college world, at least Davidson, was a close-knit kind of community. It's like, I've still got bros from that team. Professionally, it was cold and disconnected, people out for themselves, and I spiraled, even mentally, during that period of time.
Harwood's time playing in the Continental Basketball Association brought him to Omaha, Nebraska to play for the Omaha Racers, Boise, Idaho with the Idaho Stampede, and Yakima, Washington with the Yakima Sun Kings.
My transformation happened during my first year in Omaha, and it was a dark place that I got to. and I was wrestling with some internal demons, and I was wrestling with myself. Part of my backstory is I have a father who was a strong-willed, determined person, worked hard, a corporate exec, but man, alcohol was this thread that kind of crushed through our family. And there it comes from there, anxiety, stress, depression, and your coping skill is to turn to alcohol. And that was something I was resisting, but finding myself being drawn to as a way to cope with life. And that's why I would go back and say, hey, personal growth and understanding where and how to grow your life is so important when you're in that spot. It's so imperative. Get support, get coaching, get into your growth time. But in that, what happened was, in that dark space, I had a roommate who came through the road, and he became more of a mentor for me. And he asked me a question that really changed my life on a number of fronts. And it was more of a faith-based question, Julia. He asked me, hey, where are you in your life with Jesus? And I said, well, I got enough issues and challenges going on. I think I'll get to that later. I mean, a very good answer, right? But what it stuck with me about was with faith or belief, I didn't know what I believed. I just didn't know what I really believed about life, about faith, about myself, who I was outside of basketball. If that wasn't it, then who was I? Where was I going? And it raised this whole arena of what do I really believe? And I think every young person, middle-aged person, and some people I've coached in their 40s or 50s are still learning to really challenge what they believe and really get to some base truth of convictions of why they believe it. Well, my growth time story started that time. And I got into a growth journey. And really, the crux of it was I got rid of self-focus and let my pride ego go. And it's something I coach to quite a bit, no matter where we are in our human journey, is I got more of the power of you released by not being as self-focused and not letting my pride ego virus, as I call it, sabotage me.
During that period of his early 20s, Harwood struggled with depressive thoughts. He felt hopeless, as though the benchmarks he had set for himself were working toward an unachievable goal. He put his faith in Jesus and his trust in himself, desperate to dig out of the mental hole.
And what happened was, as I went on this growth journey within myself and within my faith, my confidence just started to skyrocket. I mean, it was like a different person on the basketball court. I was able to be more resilient when adversity came. I was able to move past mistakes faster, quicker. And before you know it, I signed an opportunity in the summer league that year in 97, the summer, with the Milwaukee Bucks. Performed extremely well in the summer league, and then bam, I had signed a contract with the LA Clippers, and I was getting ready to arrive before more adversity struck. But it was such a transformational journey. I realized that how personal growth and getting into that is so powerful.
As soon as he stopped trying to control the narrative and instead put his faith in the process, he began reaping the rewards.
I don't think growth is ever easy, Julia. I think we're all pretty dang resistant to change. And the more people I coach, and I coach thousands of sessions, I'm more convinced that change is one of the fundamental challenges we all face in life. And once we can be open to growth and change, our world opens up. So I think it was a struggle point, but I think once I embraced it, and I would call it or term it the voice of growth. Once I embraced the voice of growth and not having a fixed mindset, it was still reps or challenges to navigate through, but it became so much easier. I didn't resist change as much because I was listening to what I call the voice of growth and embracing it.
When he realized that regardless of elite basketball or life, growth superseded everything he was experiencing, his true root became clear. He was more than a basketball player. He had a story to tell. When his time with the LA Clippers was cut short due to an ankle injury, leaving the sport didn't feel like such an emotional depletion. His time on the court had run its course. He'd reaped what he needed from the experience, and it had served to redirect him toward a higher purpose. From his own personal growth came a mission statement. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless of if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human in this world going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a positive way. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. This is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options just in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. If this sounds like something that could help you, there's a link in the show notes to get you started on your therapy journey. It's betterhelp.com/closer-mentality. Clicking that link helps support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Because finding a therapist is a little like dating. If you don't really fit with the therapist matched with you, it's easy and free to switch therapists without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/closer-mentality. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/closer-mentality. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this channel. Did you know that you can purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore? With Libro FM, you can pick from more than 325,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company out there, you know the name. But you'll be part of a different story, one that supports your local community. If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to squeeze more reading into your busy life. Listen with the free Libro FM app while you do chores, walk the dog, or relax at home. If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen to next, check out recommendations from the people who know best, booksellers. Closer Mentality has partnered with Libro FM on a special offer. Through the link in the show notes, you can get 2 audiobooks on Libro FM for the price of 1. Offer only valid for new members in Canada and the US. Thanks to Libro FM for sponsoring this podcast.
What I identified in my own personal growth story, and I'll kind of share a framework of this. In COVID of 2020, unfortunately, I went through a massive crisis. It was what I call a life quake. I went through an unfortunate, painful relationship journey, and I went through a divorce, and it was a 20-year space, and it was unexpected, and with kids, it was just crushing, and there was a grieving place for that. At the same time, I went through the layoff of the corporate world. I worked with 24-Hour Fitness for 17 years. The industry shut down. They put us on, layover, so to speak. And then eventually they eliminated my job because they eliminated my role as they shut down the gyms that I operated. And in that, I was thinking, okay, I've already had clarity on my why. And my why in life, or my greatest motivator, was to grow and develop leaders' lives through impactful coaching, training, and education. So that was a clean mission statement that I worked on in my 30s, which I would have wished I worked on in my 20s, personal growth. But I just needed an outlet to say, how do I fulfill my mission in life if that was it? And what I reflected on, and this is how Growth Time really came about, was here I was in a very challenging environment and figuring out, how do I navigate this? How do I still live boldly confident when a lot of things are just crumbling around me? And I reflected on my journey over 20 years and all the growth lessons I had learned and identified growth gaps that I had to grow through as a person. And it became really sequential, which was really interesting, Julia. I could start to see in my own life of the 20 years prior how I had to go through different growth gaps in order to overcome myself or overcome leadership opportunities. And it became so clear, and literally it was one night at about 10 a.m. till about 4 a.m. in the morning, that between me and God, the whole thing just got downloaded on me, how to actually bring forth a growth pathway. And so the growth zones really are formulated through the journey I walked through. And like a lot of people, if you've been through something, if you've been through some pain, you're like, dude, I can stay stuck in it, or how can I make this my purpose in life?
From his mission, he devised a set of growth zones he would seek to impart on his coaching clientele. The 6 growth zones, according to Harwood, are the universally applicable building blocks that students, athletes, and individuals can use to conceptualize personal growth. He says that identity, power of beliefs, how to show up, The Power to the People, How to Drive High-Performance Teams, and The Power of 2020 Vision all assist in fine-tuning impact, confidence, and life direction. His book, Growth Time, A Coaching Fable, The Clear Path to Unlock Your Best Life in Leadership, details each of those growth zones.
These growth gaps that I saw in my life and had to grow through, let me kind of write about them and help people get clarity, which would take me 10 years. What if I consolidate this and help people get through all the noise and they can grow through this in a year period? And that's where the growth time concept came out. It was like the next generation, they need a clear path. Like you're going to climb a mountain of personal, professional growth. There's so much freaking noise out there. There's so much noise. There's so many TikToks. There's so much. It's like, what's a clear path that you could put some hooks in? And I think simplicity is powerful, especially how we operate as people. So that began the emphasis to say, okay, how do I address these growth zones then? And the book's written like a coaching fable. I think the book's more like a message to your generation and a resource because there's growth steps. But it's written as a coaching fable of a person who's navigating finding himself as a professional athlete to going through adversity and then to getting in the corporate culture and world. And it's his story. And he meets up with Coach G, who's the head of Max Potential Academy. And this figure has to learn navigating himself and getting comfortable trusting a coach called Coach G, the ultimate life coach, and how he trusts that relationship to further his personal growth so he can live a bold, confident life. And the growth zones that get introduced, the first one that gets introduced is the one that we all start with. It's called the power of you. And the power of you at its core is about helping someone get their identity strong. And we know our culture is wrestling with identity. We're wrestling tremendously with identity. And it's the one biggest mark that we don't have clarity on. We tend to not have an anchor for our mind, our soul, and our spirit. And so the power of you is about getting clarity on your identity. And when you gain clarity, you gain convictions. When you have convictions in life, you build confidence. So the power of you kind of frames it there. And there's a journey which I coached you quite a bit. I call it humanity plus divinity equals 100% power of you. So how you really get clarity on your self-growth and your God growth, how they merge together to get the strongest sense of you and your person, your mission, and your values is extremely a game changer. The next thing I identify with, we already kind of talked about it, Julia, is the second growth zone as this character navigates, is when adversity hits, when struggles come, what are your beliefs? Like the power of your beliefs. And it's really that war, that battlefield where we've got to win. We've got to win and be strong. We've got to win the power of our beliefs. So it coaches through limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs. The third growth zone that took me a while in my own personal life to really kind of get a hold of was really how to show up. Like how to show up, not just show up for work or show up for your career or show up on the basketball court or the sport, but how to really show up your best. And that really relates to the power of personal liberty, how you gain a freedom for yourself internally that allows your best authentic self to come out. So those kind of growth zones were growth gaps. And I'll say this, Julia, the dopest thing, the coolest thing was that I knew it had built something in me going through those growth journeys, but that's just my experience. But when I started 5 years ago coaching people through this, that's where the magic happened. That's where I saw people get mental clarity, life skills, career advancement. They started to change and match their mission where their money would, like matching a mission that would make them money. And the internal strength. When I started seeing that happening in people's lives, I'm like, this is fire. Like this is, your generation say this is lit. Like it is lit. It is like dope, right? And so it would communicate that. And I'm like, wow, there's something really here. It's not just my experience that I'm putting together. As I coach to it, it's changing people's lives in the world and their careers. And I'm like, let's keep going. Let's get this message out. The growth zones of leadership, that came through like growing through corporate leadership and having battles and having awareness, how you grow as a leader and how you step up as a young leader, young professional, and what are the things you really need most to navigate through leadership. So what we coach through in there is the power to the people. And coaching the power to the people is about ownership and empowerment. And we coach through within that growth zone about ownership and empowerment. And then what I really layer in deep is the mindset that is working for ownership and the mindset that's working against ownership, and how to identify that in yourself and how to identify it in others. The next layer we coach through, this character as he goes through his journey, is how do I drive a high performance team? I've got a team. What's going to make a high performance team? And in that, I coach through like what I call the performance wheel. The performance wheel is like three little spokes on a wheel, and the stronger you are each part or spoke of the wheel, the faster the wheel spins, the better results your team gets. And so in there's a great thing about how to become a coach leader as an identity as a leader. There's a great space where the person has to learn, the character has to learn how to navigate people, process, and productivity. So there's a cool performance wheel there. And that's a growth story. And then the last growth zone, Julia, is basically the power of 2020 vision. Like how you communicate as a leader vision, how you communicate focus items, how you communicate and build team vision, how you speak to the vision, and how that actually helps you navigate better results. And it's crazy because I coach probably 40 different small business owners at the moment. And within that, those principles or those growth gaps and growth time, it's what I coach those people through. If you're a young leader, it's getting clarity and getting coached through those areas that will completely elevate your game. So it's been awesome, whether it's group coaching, individual coaching through those growth zones. I find it's just been really powerful to see measured results and change in people and change in their leadership.
Harwood alluded to the internalization of these growth zones differing depending on age, worldview, and applicability. For example, the 3 zones dedicated to leadership growth, Harwood sees tremendous emotional ROI with small business owners, but high school athletes might not be at an applicable age. Conversely, mastering identity might be more impactful as a college senior than it would be as a professional athlete, seasoned coach, or business exec.
If you're a business leader, you've probably gone through some different layers of personal growth. And I think there's a different layer of experience that teaches some emotional intelligence and emotional awareness, what we call EQ in the leadership world. I think the younger space I usually coach to, I coach more towards getting clarity and strength in your life, the life component of it. And then we navigate how that's impacting your career and how that's helping you show up, and then how you could show up different in your career space. So it's more, what I notice the difference is the younger the millennial is in like their professional development or their personal, let me say their personal growth development, the more it's central. And I'm coaching a kid in college now, and he's just making tremendous growth gains, but it's more centered in that capacity. As you progress, and maybe you're in leadership or management, the emphasis changes and the coaching lens changes, because you got to become more aware not only of you, but how you are impacting others. And that becomes a little tricky, because self-awareness on your personal growth is one thing, but now when you have to become aware of the people you lead or manage or oversee and those interactions, there's a whole different level of deep coaching that goes into bringing awareness and clarity to that so they can make changes.
Are you an athlete rehabbing from an injury? Are you a coach or athletic trainer seeking additional support for your injured athlete toolkits? KT Tape has exactly what you need. KT Tape is a rehabilitation tape that helps stabilize and compress sensitive areas of the body during exercise. Apply KT Tape to an area either in pain or in recovery, and feel the difference. KT Tape is comfortable, stable, and long-wearing. There's tape for all modes of action, from gentle, which is safe for easy activity and everyday use, to pro extreme, for athletes in moderate to high-impact exercise. KT Tape makes water-resistant tape as well for a more adaptable rehabilitation implementation. KT Tape caters to lifelong athletes and focuses on reducing muscle soreness for all users when worn during exercise and up to 48 hours post. Are you an athlete in need of prescription sports goggles or sunglasses? Today's final sponsor may have just the solution for you. A site for sport eyes was created when founder Shannon Knight saw a niche that was perpetually going unfulfilled. A site for sport eyes grew out of a need for education surrounding the impact of sport-related eye injuries and their lasting repercussions. A site for sport eyes runs like a regular optical practice, not an e-commerce store. Their goal is to give you the same high-quality service and name-brand lenses made by the best optical laboratories in the country, geared specifically for athletes and athletic use cases. If you need new lenses or frames, a site for sport eyes is the perfect place to get them. The links to BetterHelp.com, Libro FM, KT Tape, and a site for sport eyes are all in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the episode.
What I find is when we coach people, that the belief they choose is the direct correlation to the joy that's in their life. It's a direct correlation. When you choose limiting beliefs, invariably, you're going to walk through seasons of feeling stuck, stagnant, stressed, anxious, and then all the other cover-up things happen. You go out, you party, you social media, you recluse, you withdraw, you find unhealthy relationships to fill the void and need, and they stem from that. When you walk in an empowering belief system, you find that there's a level of joy that really starts to come forward in a person's life. And that's where breakthroughs happen. And when you live in that, man, what I love to see people I coach is they start walking in this bold confidence in life. They start walking a whole different bold confidence. And I've been through that journey, and I still have to fight the same journey today, just like you. You're going to fight limiting beliefs. I'm going to fight them. And if we win that battle, we're going to be in a better spot.
Harwood says that in order for the individuals he coaches to internalize these growth zones to their highest potential, limiting beliefs must be acknowledged and cast aside.
Coaching at its essence is about co-creating a relationship with the other person and allowing a safe place for them to explore themselves, their ideas, their thoughts. What is allowing them to move forward in a positive direction? What is not? What is the ultimate goal? And getting clarity on that. So coaching in essence is allowing a safe place. And as a coach, I typically ask a lot of powerful questions that really expose or help people think through where they are, why they're there. And then often you find they have the internal resources to get clarity, and then it becomes helpful to them to name the actions they want to go take. So it is a powerful transforming journey. And when I got into coaching and during the year of COVID, through my own professional casualty that I went through in COVID. I know a lot of us want to forget that period, but it was good. I worked with a coach, and the coaching session I had really evoked and created such a space or container for me to open up and get my thoughts out and allow awareness to what I wanted and how I wanted it. And it was transformational. I wish I had a life coach like me when I was in college or out of college. I think I would have expedited some of the pains and struggles I went through. I mean, who wouldn't, right? If you get the right coach who's helping you explore, navigate, and build you up and help you get clarity on your direction, your goals, and shifting and helping you shape mindset, who wouldn't want that? But if you say, I'm going to go try to do it on my own, like there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers, well, you kind of get what you get. You get a longer learning curve. But I do find that people that come are more open to change because they're intentionally seeking out this coaching relationship where we can create something special together.
Offhandedly, I asked Quinn as we were closing our interview of mindset and behavior. Which needs to change first in order for real, hard, confrontational life change to occur? A chicken or the egg question of sorts. But his answer was clear.
I coached to two kind of concepts, and it's worth writing down if you're listening, because this is a truism. I think you could take it like it's out of the Bible. But mindset changes behavior. Mindset changes behavior. When you think about any change you've made in life, how you're feeling or the direction you take, it didn't change until your mindset changed. When you woke up today, if you had a bad day, if you're frustrated, you didn't even change your behavior until your mindset shifted. Maybe you heard a song on the radio. Maybe there's something you got a call that uplifted you and your mindset changed. So then your behavior changed. You didn't start cussing at people when you're driving down the road then. You felt a little more whole. You feel more confident. When your mindset changed and how you're approaching your event, if you're a sport, you're an athlete listening today, if you're like, man, I'm just so dreaded to go to practice today. It's so difficult. I'm so tired. Well, guess what your behavior is going to emulate? You're going to be tired and fatigued and dragging. If it's not, I have to go to practice. Hey, I get the opportunity to go practice today. Already that mindset will change your behavior and what's going to come forward out of it. If mindset and your perspective you're taking changes behavior, Your identity repeats behavior. Identity repeats behavior. The things you identify with and bond with, you're going to repeat behavior. The person who's like, man, I identify as a religious group or religious organization. That's my identity. Well, guess what? You're going to go to church. Hey, I'm a fitness person. I identify as a fitness person who cares about his health and wellness. Guess what? You're going to show up. If you're an Apple user and your identity is like I identify with Apple, you're going to buy all the Apple products and all the Apple support. Identity will repeat behaviors you take.
I'm so excited to announce that Quinn gifted one of you guys a copy of his book, Growth Time. If you'd like this free copy, send us a DM on Instagram at closermental, and my team will figure out shipping information for you. Only available to listeners in the US and Canada. Thank you so much for listening to episode 133 of Closer Mentality. If you found Quinn's story interesting, you can listen to our full interview at the Closer Mentality Uncensored YouTube channel, or purchase his book. Links to both of those are in the show notes. In addition, there's another link in the show notes if you're interested in booking personal, professional, or team coaching sessions with him. Once again, thanks so much for listening to episode 133 of Closer Mentality. As always, I'm your host, Julia Mellett. See you next week.